Exciting news when it comes to WWE 2K22 MyRise mode. We got all the details for you. This is coming out of Smack Talks. We're going to go and deep dive all the details with all of you right now. We're getting closer. We're getting there, aren't we? We're getting really close to that finish line. We're getting close to January where we're actually going to get more developments out of 2K22. And the news keeps dropping and just kind of trickling in as we get closer and closer to the holidays. Thanks so much for coming by, watching the show. I'm Matt. This is Assemble. Let's get into 2K22 news. Let's talk about MyRise. Smack Talks did a episode just the other day talking about the press release, talking about the conference call with the WWE 2K creative director, Lionel Jinx, discussing some of the elements when it comes to MyRise. We will have the link to the full episode in the description below so you guys can all check it out. MyRise seems to sound like it's going to have little bits of elements and sound much more like Road to WrestleMania. This has been something that a lot of you in the community have been hoping for. A lot of you have been having questions about what MyRise will actually look and feel like. It sounds like it is going to be more akin to Road to WrestleMania like we've had in the past with the SmackDown vs. Raw games. I think back to SmackDown vs. Raw 2011, going through your Road to WrestleMania as John Cena, getting the backstage segments, being able to roam around, go through like an actual storyline progression all the way to Mania, and you had voiceover work, you had cutscenes, you had interactions with stars and management and Stephanie McMahon and all this stuff. It broke up the gameplay, it made it more fun, and those were the elements of the SmackDown vs. Raw games outside of like GM mode that fans really enjoy. MyRise is going to be where you take your created superstar, rise through the ranks WWE to make it to the top. What sounds really cool though, and we'll get into the quotes in the comments in just a second, but what sounds really interesting here is that it's not going to be just some one direction, one path, single story as your male or female superstar going through your career mode. This is what really bored me, frankly, with 2K going through the MyCareer, and why I just really wasn't enjoying it in the last few years. Going through a linear story with my custom creation superstar, it didn't do anything for me because everybody around me in the community online, everyone is experiencing basically the exact same story, and the story is boring and it didn't look good in 2K20, we know that, and it just didn't get me motivated to go and interact and do anything in there. Going through all of that, just being able to have some matches and just kind of rising up and grinding through, it didn't mean much to me. So MyRise has me excited. Lionel Jinx had the following to say coming from Smack Talks, and here's the quote. "We wanted to really emphasize that this is your opportunity to take a fledgling talent from a humble beginning and live every step of the journey as they rise to the peak of WWE stardom." So we talk about some of the other modes that are in 2K22, and this has come up with the previous comments made by Lionel Jinx talking about how like in GM mode, you're going to be starting off in like high school gyms and working your way up. And they're doing kind of a similar approach here, it sounds like, where they're going to take your creative superstar and go from indies from the low end and work your way up through your story in MyRise. Lionel Jinx had more to say on this. "Using your created superstar, imagination, and choices, you can form alliances, make enemies, and branch into subplots based upon your decisions." So this has me really excited, and the reason why is because we're going to be able to have branching storylines, go in different directions, maybe battle for different titles, and have storylines and story arcs and subplots that actually go in those different directions, instead of it just being one linear story where you're trying to go all the way to Mania, we're trying to get to the main event and the big title. It also talks about how we're going to form alliances, create enemies, and have those subplots. By doing so, I like that we're going to be able to take our superstar and being able to form those alliances with different stars in the back. This is where I think that the commentary we've seen before about stars doing voiceover work is probably going to come into play, where our creative superstar is going to interact with like Drew McIntyre, who confirmed he was doing voiceover work. Maybe I could end up being actually buddied up or enemies with Drew McIntyre and build out almost my faction or my group of allies, and as I'm rising through the ranks. I like the idea that they're talking about subplots in here too. So having like an overarching story thread that's going on through my career of obviously trying to advance, probably work my way up through the ranks of Raw, SmackDown, getting after different titles, having that as almost like the main story arc, but then having subplots where my interactions are going to impact my development and my career, where if I'm going to get into a fight, into a feud with Rey Mysterio, that maybe it's actually going to be a little bit of a subplot thread that is going to tell the story over several weeks as we go, and seeing those superstars and those subplots in tag matches and things like that. Jinx continues on by saying the following when it comes to the feedback of MyCareer. We've listened to the feedback from your prior MyCareer iterations and are building MyRise with that in mind. We will have all new storylines that you'll be able to play as both male and female characters. This is great because we did do this in 2K20 where we could play as either male or female superstars through your linear MyCareer mode, and that is really awesome because we want the opportunities to do both. And I like that they're going to take that and do one step further by actually having brand new storylines all built in there. What I like is the idea that this could actually open up a little bit more of the story, everybody, so that it's not going to be one linear story path, but actually whether I'm a male or female superstar, it won't really matter, but maybe the system that they're building with MyRise will let me have like 4 or 5 different stories or outcomes that could actually play out. Because maybe if I take my superstar in the direction of becoming a tag team specialist or cruiserweight or heavyweight, maybe it's going to impact the stars that I interact with and the storyline that could come out of all of that. It'll be interesting too to see what they do when you have a female superstar and how much that changes too. Because I'd love to see if they did voiceover work for Becky and Charlotte and Sasha and Bailey and all these superstars so that I can have those interactions with them. The other piece too for me is going to be able to go through your MyRise mode, get those achievements and get those unlockables and all of that as you're progressing. It gives players a better incentive for wanting to play through both male and female storylines in MyRise so that we are not just feeling bored or that the mode only has kind of like a one shot and we're done. It feels like we can actually go back and it has replayability more and more and more. It's starting to sound like 2K has been listening to what the community feedback has been over the years. And it sounds like they're starting to implement this with modes like MyRise, as well as GM mode, where they're not going to be carbon copies of what we have seen and experienced in the past. This gets me really hyped up and excited, guys, because that means we're going to have something different. Like I said earlier, MyCareer mode has always been kind of dull and boring for me. I miss the days of Road to WrestleMania, being able to go through with John Cena or another superstar and rise up to get all the way and telling an interesting, sometimes very quirky and just silly storyline. But at least it was something, and they had put effort into creating these original storylines and story arcs to play through, and it creates replayability with that too. This has me really amped up because we're going to be able to have male, female storylines that will feel different, and hopefully there will be voiceover work in there because that makes it a little bit more authentic and it's not rehashing. The fact that Lionel Jinx is talking about multiple different storylines does give me some confidence that we're going to see a lot more with this mode than just being one and done. What do you all think? Do you think that MyRise is actually going to be much more like a Road to WrestleMania? Or is it going to be just kind of having like 2-3 storylines and you're going to be done anyways? And what has you excited? Is it more of the MyRise mode? My faction has your curiosity piqued? Or is it the GM mode? And don't forget about Universe mode. We still have that in there. People don't talk about Universe mode enough. It's going to be a fun time. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you guys enjoyed this episode all the way through, hit that subscribe button, hit that little thumbs up. It helps the YouTube algorithm. We get out there more into the wild, universe of YouTube. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.